Kinda? Okay. It's funny, I was chatting with Lisette and James before the session, and you'll learn that Lisette has an awesome accent. And I said, well, I don't, as you can tell. And the comment was made, hey, you're not going to learn that accent in the next 10 minutes. And I said, watch me. So I'm not going to put you all through that, but we are going to talk about something really important today, and that's well-being. And that's where Lisette from our community engagement team at Jamf and James Raffel are going to talk through that. I do want to address just one housekeeping item, and that is Q&A we've handled a little bit differently this year versus years past. So if you open your JNUC app, and this is true for virtual and in-person attendees to submit Q&A, and go to the My Events, and then go to the session. So from Burnout to Balance, you can submit your Q&A directly within the app. Aside from that, I will spare y'all from my stand-up comedy routine. Morning is tough and words are hard. And I will introduce Lisette and James.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh, that's bright.
That's great, yeah.
That is bright lights.
I'm really disappointed there was no Scottish accent.
Well, I have I guess it's a Maryland accent with a transplant of Pennsylvania Dutch, so you should be able to understand me. All right, so good morning. These lights are awful, holy cow. I can't see anybody, but I can see down here. So Lisette and I are here to present from Burnout to Balance, leveraging technology and advocacy for wellness. And hopefully that's the last time I'm gonna read down there. So important note, and I know there's tables here and I see laptops out there, and our fine host just said to put your questions into your phones. But what we are hoping to do is for you guys not to focus on those and to focus more on us. The kind of the spirit of this presentation is about wellness and kind of treating yourself, not worrying about the fires that are happening, because I know there's a few IT admins out here, and I know you're going through emails and fires already this morning. So if you can kind of step aside and focus on us, that would be awesome. But we understand life happens, so yeah, that's our quick disclaimer. I will turn it over for a second to Lisette to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Lisette Bull. I manage our Jamf Heroes Partner Hub and Customer Hub.
And I am James Raffel. I'm a IT program director from the Geisinger Health System, as I said, in central Pennsylvania. We met, coincidentally, the little guys there in the corner. That is Jamf's, that is Jamf's logo for the Jamf Hero program. I have been a customer, Geisinger has been a customer of Jamf for a long time. And when they introduced this Heroes program a few years ago, I joined it and ended up meeting up with Lisette. And when we both put in a proposal for the conference, they were kind of similar. And you'll see how they dovetail off of each other in a bit. But they asked us to see if we could get together and if our personalities worked and if we liked each other, could we present together. So here we are. So our Jamf Heroes connection is there. So if you're not, and I'll just give them a shameless plug, if you're not a member of Jamf Heroes, it's a pretty cool program for customers. So that's that. So we can start. So what is well-being? Well-being, here's the animation. Well-being is the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy, or happy. I like the and the or idea there, but it's the idea that your physical, your emotional, your mental, your social pieces are all kind of meshed together when it comes to your well-being. You have all these external inputs that are coming in and affecting you, and what we're going to try to talk about today is how to calm that, how to figure out how to get to a better place in your mind. And so what we're going to talk about today, we kind of have it carved up into two spots. Lisette is going to talk about what's going blue. So for those that were in last year's keynote, when Dean was talking about what he would do on his phone. She's going to talk about that and some of the things that she does kind of individually. And then I'm going to tell Geisinger's story about how our management team took some pretty radical steps to help our employees to tackle that. And then we're going to touch on some of the things that you can put into your toolkit. So, to kick it off, my why. So, there's 3 pictures up there. The one on the far right there, those are my kids. Yes, I have 4 daughters and a son. That's what all the gray hair is. But kids growing up in today's world, they got it tough. We had it tough. Well, you're a little younger than me, but we had it tough growing up, but it's a whole different world now. So I've been focusing on the well-being and the upbringing of my kids for a while. So that's a key component of my why. The next one there, that's a big old pile of iPads. So back in 2020, the pandemic happened. The team that I manage at Geisinger is phenomenal. They'll run through walls for our patients. And I need to make sure that they are in good shape all the time. So that's the second piece. And then I didn't really feel right putting up a picture of somebody that you might not recognize, so I put up that picture. I also do a double shift as a patient companion. So what that is, I sit with patients who need extra help sometimes. And so for our staff, that's also at the forefront of my mind, is making sure that they have all the tools, I guess you could say, and that's always weighing on my mind with physician and nurse burnout. So that is my why. I will turn it over to Lizette to talk about her why.
Can we hear me? I can hear me, so I know it for sure. Okay, so when it comes to well-being, I really think about what is important to me. So for me, I struggle with my mental health, so I have OCD, I have severe anxiety, so I am very comfortable talking about my mental health. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any. So for me, when I think of well-being, it's about what keeps me well in that moment, day to day. So I just put up some photos here. So my friends, I have incredible friends. And actually this one, Karen in the yellow actually. So I find that when I'm really struggling with my mental health, I retreat. So I don't talk as much on any of my friends' chats. I really just go into quite an insular world. And so she'll just send me a message that says, okay, 0 to 10, where are you at? And that means that she knows, actually, okay, Lizette maybe just needs me to send her some funny memes for a couple of days, just so that she can check in with me and I feel connected, but I don't have the pressure of having to answer questions. But it's also great because it means I can take a step and be like, okay, how am I? It might just be that I'm traveling for work. My family don't even know I'm here. I'm terrible at talking to people sometimes. But it just means I am able to check in with myself. And I now use it day to day as well. If my friends or my boyfriend, if I try to gauge where they're at and how I can support them. Which also brings me on to my boyfriend. I find that with mental health, if you struggle with it yourself, it's inherently quite selfish. We think we're the only ones going through it. We're having a bad day, and our bad day is worse than yours sometimes. So for me, when I think of well-being, it's how can I keep myself balanced so that I can be the best version of myself for me, but also for those close to me, so that they don't have to have that added weight. If I can do everything I can to maintain my well-being and keep myself level, that means that I can have better relationships with them, with myself as well. So how do I do that? I go hiking. I like to be outdoors. I like to exercise. I find that when I hike, I can control one foot in front of the other more than I control my brain most of the time. So I like to just get outside. And I think there's nothing better than realizing how small you are in this tiny world when you're in a landscape of mountains. And it helps I live in Scotland with loads of mountains. And also, I really like to eat cake. So when I was writing this presentation, I had a meltdown, guys. Meltdown. And I just couldn't see the wood for the trees. I couldn't work out how to move forward with the presentation. I got imposter syndrome. So I just took myself out for cake. And I just decided that's what I was going to do that day, because that's what I needed to make myself feel well. And it meant that I could then come back. And well, I sent that photo to my boyfriend, and he was like, thank God, she's going to be in a good mood today. So it's really important that you just know different things that you can do to help yourself. So you might remember this from last year, and this is what James mentioned. This is where Dean spoke in the keynote about when he goes blue. And that's when he uses focus modes to disconnect from all his work apps and just go into personal time. So that when he's spending time with his wife, he can just be on in that moment and disconnected and have an opportunity to just be in the moment. So show of hands in the room, who currently uses focus mode? Nice, that's amazing. So I actually didn't before, which is silly. But now I do, because it's just so helpful to be able to separate your day, particularly when you're going from work and when you feel constantly on when you have a device in your hand. So I actually put my phone in another room most of the time because I'm not particularly disciplined with it. But I can, because that's the nature of my role. But I appreciate that for the people in this room, maybe you can't, which is why finding ways to disconnect is so important. So in 2020, there was a survey by Deloitte about workplace burnout, and 70% of people that year said that they had experienced burnout in their current workplace that year. That's 3/4 of this room right now that experience burnout. It's massive. And recent studies have shown that that's as high now as 89%. So it's such an area of focus that we need to be focusing on for ourselves, for our users, for our colleagues, to understand how we can bring well-being to the forefront of our organizations and to our own lives. We thought we were out of one pandemic, but we're maybe in a new one. So it's so important that we have well-being focus within your company and for yourself as well. Now, we know that, what's happened to my clicker? There we go. Okay, so technology empowers us, but it also consumes us. It's that tug-of-war balance. So we all work in tech. I'm not very good at tech, obviously, but it's why we are here at JNUC. But with technology advancements, how do we really take control of balance, right? How do we foster a positive, balanced life-work lifestyle for our colleagues, for our users? And actually what you do is really important because you reduce friction points, which massively impacts your users' well-being in their workplace. Workplace stress can massively impact our stress levels in general. You saw the stats, 77% have experienced burnout. And we all have workplace stress. We have a baseline level of stress that we all experience day to day. But when you add tech issues into that, if people can't access their basic tools that they need or their accessibility functions, it just adds that layer of frustration. And by providing these functionalities, you're actually able to retain your staff and have people have a better experience within their work life. By even just providing device of choice means that people have the option to use the devices that they're most comfortable with, so that they enjoy their experience. When I was actually writing this, I spoke to one of my colleagues, and he said at his last place of work, not Jamf, because it's cool, he had loads of people left because they were infuriated. They couldn't access their basic tools. So by providing these things, you are helping your users. You are helping balance their day-to-day well-being in their workplace. It's massive. And I remember my first day at Jamf, I opened my laptop and I was like, it's magic. I'm going to Hogwarts. But actually, it was just Jamf Pro. So the Jamf Pro icon. Now, we know it makes it easier for our users, but not necessarily for you. We recognize that it's easy for me. I'm on the end of it. I just get to enjoy the fun of Jamf Pro, the ease of Jamf Pro. But for you, Mac admins in the room, you have the maintenance, you have the setup, you have the questions. There's so much more that you have to handle. So who in the room, hands up, uses Jamf Pro? Okay, so when you see this icon, does it make your tension go up or down? Right? So for me, it's down. For you, maybe not. But we think of Jamf Pro as a work solution. But can it be harnessed for wellness? So I work in community. I'm not tech-minded. You're the experts. But it really excites me to think of all the things that you can do with Jamf Pro. So have you, for example, ever thought about how you could leverage Jamf Pro to influence wellness? What if it did focus mode for you, or vacation mode? What if you created Zen Time, an app allowing your users the ability to shut down apps and notifications for 60 minutes at the push of a button? So maybe you've already thought of ways that you can leverage Jamf Pro or do the Jamf products that you use to help your community and help your users. But we really encourage you to think of what that could look like. And please, if you think of ideas, come and see me at the community booth, because it really excites me to think of all the things you can do. But I recognize that you can do all these things for your users, but what about you, right? How can you carve out time in your day for wellness when you feel on 24/7? So James mentioned at the beginning how well-being incorporates all of the different elements. It's physical, it's emotional, it's social. So when we think about physical well-being, how can you use that within your workplace? And it can look different depending on your environment. So from a fitness perspective, for you, it could be sharing ergonomics or posture understanding with your colleagues or your users, and the benefits of blue light or night mode, to even looking at bigger fitness challenges that bring people together. So this was actually an example that we did at Jamf, where we had teams compete. We looked at the distance from London to Timbuktu. And as teams, we had to achieve that number of kilometers. So we had to compete against each other. You could run, you could walk, you could cycle. The cycle people, I feel like, had it way easier. But it meant that everyone was working towards a common goal of wellness. And it's so easy to think that we can't necessarily influence these things in the workplace, but we absolutely can. And I know that from personal experience, I mentioned I hike, I like to get out, I like to exercise. When there is a routine with my physical well-being and fitness, I am much more stable, I'm much more balanced. I went for a 5K run this morning, that's why I'm on stage. And I'm ready to take on whatever life has to throw at me. But I mentioned before that I retreat, which is why I know that social well-being is also really important. Now, there's different ways of looking at social well-being within your workplace. For you, it might be that you thrive in a one-to-one environment. That's how you can have your wellness cup filled when you're in that work environment. Maybe it's team socials or sharing the benefits of how team collaboration can positively impact your social well-being and your well-being overall. Collaborating with other teams as well. For me, and my colleague who's in the room, Callie, will testify to this, I do forced fun. So I make people take pictures of what's in their fridge. I play taller or smaller because we live in a remote world and we work with giants that we had no idea about. And I also asked them what the title of their autobiography would be, which is a lot harder than you think. I know mine, you're welcome to ask. But it means that you have these opportunities to connect with people on a personal level, to fill your wellness cup in the day, because not every work day has to be a hard day. We can look at how we can take moments for that brain break. Sometimes in our team or for other teams, we'll just take 5 minutes and play Scribble online, just to have an opportunity to disconnect and move away from work so that we're just topping that cup up through the day. And have a think about what social well-being could look like in your workplace. Now, there are multiple factors that impact your well-being and life-work balance. And we spend so much time in our work environment, and there can be days or weeks that are actually really difficult. And we all know that. We've always all had the bad day. When you've got to the end of a 10, 12, 13-hour day, and you've thought, what did I actually do today? That never happens to me. I work at Jamf and I'm at JNUC, so always very productive. But there's a theory called flow state, which is also referred to as in the zone. And that's basically a mental state where you are fully immersed in a task at hand. Now, you want to think of this as a challenge that's just slightly out with your day-to-day challenge. You want to feel challenged by it, but not hindered by it. You want to feel motivated by this task. Now, often when we're in a stress environment, when we feel really overwhelmed, when we don't know where to start, when you go to get cake, it's really important that you think about, okay, how can I tap into this? How can I be my most productive? How can I enter flow state where you just feel like hours have passed? When you're in, you'll have had an experience where you've started something, maybe it's in your hobby, maybe it's in a task within your work life, and suddenly hours have passed, and you're like, wow, I was really invested in that task, and it's so rewarding. And there's so many variables that can influence your flow state. So I really encourage you to think about what that looks like for you. But just to motivate you, to give you an idea, I'm going to share with you mine. So for me, it's different hours in the day. I'm most productive in the morning and in the afternoon. I'm based in Scotland. My whole team is based in the US, so I have to be on in the afternoon. So I have to plan my day so that they don't just get sleepy, Lizette. So I have focus hours in the morning and in the afternoon, and this changes sometimes. Then I think of, okay, what are the external distractions? So I have AirPods in my ears. I find that helps me really focus if I have it in my head. I will eliminate all other distractions. I'll have a web page up just for that one task that I'm working on, because otherwise I start clicking off. You all know you get distracted suddenly by notification, so I turn all those off also. I also look at the internal distractions. So my brain goes constantly. So I just brain dump. I just get a piece of paper and I write down all the things so I know I can come back to those things later. And then I also can't listen to music with lyrics because I just have a karaoke session. So I have to have a specific lyric lists, playlists that I focus on. But these things, these different elements, allow me to tap into that flow state so that I can have those productive moments, so that I don't get to the end of the day and just feel frustrated. If I even just have these parts of the day where I've been productive, I'm happy. The rest of the day, I can just go out for a walk. I don't. I do my job, I promise. But I do recognize that at Jamf, we are very fortunate that we have the tools and encouragement in our work environment to look at our life-work balance and prioritize it. But we do recognize that not all organizations have this. So James is going to touch on how you can influence well-being in your workplace.
So, yeah, not to paint a terrible picture about Geisinger, because it's an awesome place to work. I've worked there for 27 years, plan to work there for a bunch more. So when we started putting our slides together, this was the original title of my presentation. And for the IT folks, the last piece there, IT management that cares, it's becoming less rare these days, but a lot of times you're just working and head down and your expectation is you're just going to do your job and not enjoy it. So for probably the past 25 years, our management has been very focused on just making sure the health system is running. We're a very tech-heavy organization. For those in that field, we've been on an electronic medical record for 25 years. So it's a great place to work if you're an IT person, but it's also a very stressful place. So that was the title of my original presentation. And what happened a couple of years ago was one of our associate CIOs finally decided it was time that we actually try to work in IT to kind of do everything that Lizette's talking about. So what I'm going to do, hopefully in the next few minutes, is just kind of go through what happened and where we are today. So next, what was formed after we had an employee survey, and I'm sure everybody has surveys that you have to answer all the questions for, whether you're engaged, how happy you are, all those things. Our survey came out during the pandemic, and the scores were really bad, and I'll show you those in a second. But what came out of it was a group called, well, we didn't have a name. Our group of 10 people had to figure it out. So it was a fantastic day of brainstorming and coming up with a plan for something that didn't exist. And for folks that have that chance, it's one of the coolest things that you can do. So colleague experience advocates. It's a mouthful, but the name is pretty much what it is. We didn't want to call it staff and management. We didn't want to call it employees, colleagues, because that has a much nicer connotation. And we weren't trying to sugarcoat this, but we were trying to make it as good as possible. So colleagues, and what is your experience at work? And our job was to advocate for the 900 other people, excuse me, in IT to make things better. So that was our group. And what an advocate is, right there, a person who publicly supports or recommends a particular cause or policy. So we were empowered by our CIO to make recommendations and not get approval from him, but make recommendations that we needed to do. And I'll touch on that in a minute with our first big win. But our group was kind of at the forefront in front of IT with regular report outs to tell people what we were going to do. And it was all based on the feedback that you'll see here in a second. So this, and I know this, I don't know if you guys can read that. Looks like you can. All right, so there's a lot of stuff up there. The important thing, a couple of the verticals, work-life balance and decision quality, are over here on the right. It's not good. So people felt they had no say in decisions for IT or strategy. The balance between being not at work and being at work was way out of whack. People couldn't take time off. It wasn't awesome. So that was the survey that kind of kicked things off. What then happened, obviously, you don't have to read all that, but we took, and I know this sounds like a crazy idea, we took our normal town hall meeting, which is a Teams meeting of 900 people, and opened up the chat, opened up the mics, and people just were told, just tell us what the problems are. And we got that, and we got that, and we talked to management, we talked to non-management, tried to find the common points, and we got some that we wanted to focus in on. So kind of this is how we got tied in together. Life-work balance. And as you can see, something as simple as, correct me if I'm wrong, most people know it as work-life balance. The idea, somebody smarter than me had the idea, it's not really, we need to put life at the forefront as opposed to work, because that's what it's really about. And so something as simple as rebranding that as life-work balance. The interesting thing is, as time has gone on, evidently the industry has also adopted that. So it's nice to see that we're getting a little affirmation. So we took all the things on the left, plus the engagement and the results, and then split them up into these work groups to focus on. I was part of the one at the bottom there, inefficient workflows and process enhancements, and that was very interesting. I wish I could have worked on the top one a little more, because that was more fun. Process enhancement, IT is not the most glamorous or fun thing to do. So the quick win and a lesson learned. So like I said, our CIO empowered us to not necessarily run things, because that was his job, but to come to him and say, these are the things that we need to change. So back in March of 22, when the pandemic hit, all of IT, like probably most people here, were sent home and worked from home. Certain people had to stay in, certain were hybrid. And in March of 2022, when things were kind of calming down, our CIO wanted to bring everybody back in and get the community back, all the benefits of having people together. But we had gotten some feedback that people were happy the way they were. So we took a survey, and as you can kind of see with the pie chart there, most people, almost all, were happy where they were. So we were actually able to go back to the CIO and say, no, the direction you want it to go, we're thinking we're not going to go in that direction. We're going to keep it as is. You can give up all the office space. You can, reap the benefits of turning back in all that and saving money. But most importantly, people are happier. And I think Lizette touched on it. When people are happier, they work better and they enjoy life better. So we were able to also show all 900 people in IT that they actually do have a voice, and it makes a difference now. So providing that feedback was really useful, and that's what kind of kicked off as we're progressing today. So just a quick show of hands. On the left-hand side there, how many of you have experienced like 2 or 3 of those things? And I know it takes a second to read them all, but yeah, I would expect everybody to raise their hand. So that was kind of how we were. After we started implementing some of the changes there on the right, incorporate schedule flexibility, that was huge. So most of the time, since we're a 24/7 hospital health system, we do have inpatient, we do have outpatient, so it runs the gambit. We empowered our, call them line managers, but like people like me, program directors, to make decisions for their team. Do 410s work? Do different days work? And by doing that, At the time we started it, it was right at the beginning of summer. So people tried some different things, the 410s, the shorter days, if you wanted to work, have a 3-day weekend. All of that was thrown onto the table for people to use and managers to manage with. And that was huge, not only for the teams, but also it showed the managers that we could make decisions on our own and be allowed to do that. So the rest of the things on that list, I'm sure everybody who has been on paid time off, PTO, has gotten a call at some point because something they're responsible for doesn't work. That right now is a big focus to try to make sure all of the teams have proper documentation, all the ducks in a row, so that doesn't have to happen. I went to Puerto Rico this summer, and I let my team know, I said, for the first time in all the time I've been there, I'm going to not look because I trust that you guys can do this. And it was great. It worked great. I didn't look. Coming back and seeing the hundreds of emails was not great, but I was able to disconnect, and it was fantastic. So those were all the good things that we have started. And not that we did any of this to, I'll be frank, we didn't do it to improve the scores. The survey has a very bad connotation in our organization. So it wasn't about the scores, but it's always nice to get affirmation because as you can see there, the 2 categories we were really focused on went up at least 20%. So we were very happy about that. So that was the story of what IT did. As Lizette touched on, like Jamf is Hogwarts and all the good stuff that you guys do. We have a Center for Life Work Well-Being. And I'm going to try to move along here quick, but that is something that has come up probably in the past couple of years as a focused area for Geisinger employees. And they do as much as they can to provide all the tools that Lizette has touched on and will touch on, and more. So highlighting a few of them, we use a company called Cabana, and what that is, it's basically a support group that is moderated. It's virtual, so in today's world, somebody can plug in at any time, at any situation, and get some benefit from talking, getting advice, things like that. As I said, healthcare, I didn't want to go down rabbit holes of surveys and industry white papers about the burnout rate of physicians and nurses, as well as IT people and all the support people. As I said, I work as a patient companion. I do that because we ran out of them. During COVID, people didn't want to do it anymore. So people have left all areas within healthcare, and that's a big problem. So anyway, the support that we can provide for all of our staff is huge. And by kind of partnering with outside organizations, it makes it a lot easier because that's not our book of business. They also have put together curated lists of lots of resources. Too many to put up on slides here. But they make it readily available for anybody that wants to utilize it. They have people on staff that can help people figure out what they need in their time of need. And this one is the coolest one that I like. It's peer support. So if I need help, I need to find somebody that I can connect with. When you're talking about nurses, when you're talking about doctors, and I know I'm focusing on the clinical side of things, but they're special people, and they deal with stuff that is just, you don't even want to think about it. But to be able to talk to somebody else who is trained a little bit in how to provide that support is huge. So this is a program that was started internally to Geisinger, and we use a secure messaging platform that has a box that you just text, and you get somebody back very quickly, whether it's an emergent problem or whether it's just something you want to schedule. So that's huge. So that is pretty much Geisinger's story of where we were, kind of where we are today. And the biggest takeaway is you can't rest on your laurels. So all that stuff that we did, the full transparency, we have gone through some financial issues. So focus has fallen away from that CEA group a bit. And we've learned the lesson that you can't just kind of toss it out there and think it's going to continue. So we're now going back into maintenance mode of, we're going back to the management staff and saying, hey, on that list there, you're not supposed to be scheduling Friday meetings. We're seeing lots of those. So there is the kind of the care and feeding of the program. So it's not just, here's your toolkit, go. It's, here's your toolkit. We're going to check in with you on a regular basis. So speaking of toolkits, I will turn it back over to Lizette
Thanks.
to talk about that more.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to bring this home for you guys. Hopefully some time for Q&A if we have any questions. So I want to talk about what you can do when you're looking at your own well-being toolkit, because you could use a wrench instead of a hammer, but it's not going to be as good, and our toolkits are so personal to us. So I'm going to share some things that I use. They might be something that actually you think could be quite helpful, or it just gives you a thought process of what could be in your toolkit. So this is an app I use every day. It's called Dailyo, and this is where I track my mood. So I've been doing this for 3 years now. And basically, it's because I wanted to be able to quantify my mood. So I found that sometimes, and you'll have thought this yourself, you have a bad day, week, 2 weeks, and you'll be like, that month was terrible. But was it? I want to be able to know that actually it wasn't a bad month. I don't want to just write off a month of my life or a week of my life and assume that it was bad, when actually there was so much joy to be had. There was so many positives throughout that month. So I track my mood. I log the things that happened in that day that made it a good day, like presenting a JNUC. And I find that it's really useful for me, but it's really about looking at what's the right tool for the right moment. So I do this every single day, but maybe another day it's okay, do I need to go for a run? Do I need to have a different kind of cake? That is why, it's always cake, sorry guys. Okay, so this is what I currently use. But we know technology advances, and actually with the most recent update to Apple, they're becoming far more invested in well-being and mental health. Which brings me on to, very soon, iOS 17 will be launching new mental health capabilities across iPhone, Apple Watch, and iPad. So for example, they'll have a brand new app called Journal, and this provides you ways to capture your thoughts and reflect on moments in your life. So it'll use device machine learning to look at different photos you've taken or locations, so you can log the different things that actually made your day great, which I think is really cool. And of course, it has end-to-end encryption as well, security that you would expect from Apple. So I definitely encourage you to take a look. There's also the mindfulness app, which we probably all ignore on our watch all the time. I do all the time, which is ironic because I'm really passionate about well-being. But with the new iOS 10, it will bring new ways to log your moods, describe your feelings, and of course, continue the meditation and mindfulness moments. And then the health app will be updated with ways to include mood metrics, improved sleep tracking, and so many more. So it's amazing to see that Apple are putting well-being at the forefront of their updates moving forward. And the improvement of sleep tracking for me is fascinating because I'm a massive advocate for sleep. Sleep influences everything. I know we're at a JNUC party, that's fine. I might go to bed early, we'll see. I might stay out till 5, we don't know. But it repairs your body, mind, and soul. So fun enough, we sacrifice sleep in favor of fun all the time. It's when you've had a bad day, you'll know you'll go to the freezer, you'll take out a pint of ice cream, you eat the whole thing. You'll order a pizza and a side chaser of chicken, and you'll eat the whole thing. And you don't necessarily feel better at the end of it. This is known, when you're sacrificing sleep, it's known as sleep procrastination or revenge bedtime. And it's where you're taking revenge on your busy day by that loss of me time that you've experienced at the expense of sleep. You'll watch TV later, you'll stay up late, you'll play games later so that you can carve out time for yourself. But lack of sleep degrades your thinking memory, your productivity, your ability to process emotions and stress. The knock-on is massive. And for me, it is in my toolkit at all times. I will always prioritize sleep. It is what will keep me balanced when everything else fails. So you might even struggle with racing thoughts. I have ideas for that. But with the new updates from Apple, I challenge you to prioritize sleep for 2 to 4 weeks and see the impact that it has on your work, on your eating habits, on your exercise habits, and see the difference that it can make. Now, there are endless apps and technology that you can use to support your well-being, and you can find me in the community booth to tell me yours. So whether it's meditation, so Headspace and Calm have 1 to 3 minute stress meditations. I did one this morning, it was great. It might be that you're a visual person, so things like Miro, which allow you to do visual boards, might be really great for how you process information or how you plan. Or Trello for day-to-day planning. If you're a list taker like me, it's great for when you're on the move, you can just stay up to date. Maybe you're old school. So I fill in a 6-minute journal every day. It's a gratitude journal. It doesn't even take 6 minutes, it's a lie. And this is so I can really look at, okay, what is great? What's great about today? What was great about today? It might be therapy. Hypnotherapy. I've done that twice. Happy to answer questions on it. Or breathing box techniques. So I do this all the time. Yesterday, or on Monday, I was really nervous about a presentation at the Partner Summit. So I just, before I went on stage, was doing box breathing. So I definitely recommend looking at breathing techniques if you suffer from stress or anxiety or just need to actually take a break out of your day. It's super helpful. So these things are all in my toolkit. But it's really about truly recognizing what you need and when, except sleep. Sleep is in all of your toolkits. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
We'll bring Patrick up.
I will say, I feel like you were speaking directly to me on the sleep procrastination thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
That describes last night. Okay, so we do have a few questions here, and some really nice sentiments too. So I want to start with a question from Martina, so thank you. What other indicators of overall and general employee well-being can be used apart from self-reporting surveys?
Listening. I mean, I know self-reporting surveys are definitely a good way to gather in a general way. But we used, like I said, in that IT town hall where 900 people had the opportunity, and it was virtual, and we had a big auditorium and some people were in there. So that was kind of like a mix of things. Some people are not that comfortable. So we also had to take into account, we didn't want people circumventing management to just bitch and complain. So we had to set up a way for them to be able to freely come one-on-one to us. So it was a lot of different methods because the mileage is going to vary with each one.
Okay. By the way, I really like the listen idea. Like, that's so overlooked, so.
Oh, it is. And for our management team, we are constantly working on trying to teach because we've made assumptions that managers know how to manage. But in the technical world, sometimes you're promoted because you're a great technician and you don't necessarily get that training. We're all here getting trained on all the good stuff in Apple and Jamf, right? But you don't necessarily get that management training. So how to listen, that's huge. And that's also part of our wellness group.
Love that. Love that. Lisette, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, cool. Really awesome question here. We mentioned this at the top of y'all's presentation, but what would be the name of your autobiographies?
Mine is Bool in a China Shop. My last name is Bool, and I'm chaos in this world.
That is a good question. I never really
I
thought
should have
about
asked
it.
you this. I asked
I know.
everybody this.
I know. I'll plead the fifth. I'll get back to you.
Okay. Come to the community booth. I'll fill you in with what his answer is.
There you go.
By the way, for what's worth, mine would be Fly by the Seat of My Pants.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we just had a couple of really sweet sentiments that the team shared with us. So wanted to give a shout out to the IT people on the front line. Being reactive versus proactive is really tough, and you're our heroes. And then James, peer support, fantastic idea. So awesome work on providing something like this for your staff.
Yeah, I can't claim that as my own. The smarter people that get paid for doing that. And like I said, we in IT did the one piece that I talked about, but our group that not all organizations have a wellness-focused group like we do. And it's just a fantastic resource. So yeah, they're the people that are really driving this now.
So humble. So humble. Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, if everybody in the audience and in TV land wants to talk to you all further, how do we do that?
Yeah, so, we have a brain date. Come date our brains. It's straight after this at 11, so we can talk about well-being in the workplace if you have any questions or would like to just ask us questions.
Yeah.
I'll be at the community booth for the rest of JNUC, and you can find me on Slack. I'm Lisette Bull, or Hero, or you can email me as well for anyone that's watching virtually.
And you can find me on Slack. I'm RafJam, just the reverse of my name. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free.
Cool. Cool. Well, thank you both very much. Let's give a round of applause for Jam and Lisette.
Thank you.
For the rest of JNUC.
All right. I noticed in our, we're still on mic.